you have to be prepared for if he were to knock on the door or he were to actually pick up the phone and call and saying, I want to come home. Either way, when there's a major connection like that, would you feel that you're ready for that today? Welcome to the Sally Harris Show, where moms of estranged adult children find faith and courage to rise again. Today, I have a special guest, a mom from Maryland, who we're going to talk to today. And we're going to talk about how this estrangement with her son has been affecting her and her family. And so let's dive right in. I just want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Sally.
So, I want to set the scene for the moms listening in regards to how things kind of began. And your son is how old?
He just turned 22.
Okay, so he's 22. You guys had an agreement as he became an adult on, what the expectations were as far as if he was going to live in your home, et cetera. So you supported him on the path of education or work, had some expectations with that, probably financially and whatnot, which is very normal and typical and good. Whether he's continuing school or he's going to start working right away, for him, therapy for his mental health was super important. And obviously, if he was going to live in your home, had to kind of abide by some rules, which are also very expectant and good. Avoiding harmful choices, right? Just leading, you're going to help him out. He's leading a good life. He's doing what he needs to be doing. So what did that agreement mean to you as a parent? Like what hopes and dreams did you have for him?
What it meant, to us was an expression of that we value him and still do. Just that we love him, that he's important to us, that we wanted to be there and support him whatever path that he chose. We were not trying to control or direct his pathway. He was free to choose that, but also just needed to live with the rewards and consequences of our choices that he makes.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you feel that, things went wrong with that? So you mentioned that he gradually dropped from full-time to part-time school, stopped following treatment recommendations so that, tested positive for drug use, those kinds of life decisions that he was making. So when you first noticed the pattern, this new pattern of behavior that wasn't necessarily a case prior to that, missing school, that kind of stuff, what was your feelings as a mom?
Um, just as a mom, love I loved my son. I still love my son. We had been tremendously supporting him, still are, even in this time of estrangement, we're still, wishing him well and praying and, wanting good things for him. What it just meant to us when he, was just a disrespect for the time, treasure, and talent that went into supporting him. And it's also difficult when there isn't a shared value system. And that we don't have to be identical, but that was something that was really difficult. We didn't fight over it. We were in harmony. It wasn't like he was coming from a family that we would have where relationships or my relationship with him or his father or his siblings, there was no, fighting. So that's why it was like such a surprise. You don't have to agree on everything, but things that are important like respect and honesty, even if you don't have like the same faith or, what have you, but you still could respect one another. You still could be rooted, be supportive. You still could be honest. And I felt like there was the loss of trust and,
Yeah.
honestly, and that it just kind of made it like difficult. And I didn't estrange him. There wasn't like we just, parted ways. And then
Yeah.
it's just, yeah.
Well, one of the things too that you mentioned is you didn't have any fights, which, there's a lot of moms in my community that I've coached and I'm coaching with that feel the same, like there wasn't any. And then there's some that are absolutely right. Like we know things just did not end well in regards to conversations. But were there any warning signs that you feel you missed? Is there anything looking back now?
Hindsight is always so much clearer. But I think before the estrangement, like he was doing counseling, once a week for about 4.5, 5 years. And I think he probably needed additional support. He was struggling with anxiety and depression. And then he was also one of the kids that was affected by COVID. So that is when you have someone that has delayed social skills, because not everybody develops like the same intellect, very smart. Different people, no one is born, with high achieving skills in all areas. But when one doesn't have as many opportunities to develop social skills and encounters like COVID, I think that it was much more damaging, for that, and also just having personality that, you know, introverted was relying instead of relying on real people, relied on the internet. So
Mm,
we're
so
just
true.
with the some warning signs for my children was like the first steps. There's these like safety protocols and different shields they can put on your computer, but that wasn't there for my kids when they were just, we thought that there was safety and there wasn't.
Okay. All right. Makes total sense. So, you had this good relationship, things were in place, and then the silence hit. So, what was it like emotionally when you first felt like the relationship was broken? Like there was a major fracture? What did that feel like for you?
You just it was a loss of everything. I felt like I was mourning. It just was so sad and devastating because I didn't nobody talks openly about, like, estrangement, at least in my community, and I had no idea that, like, all Americans, 1 in 6 people will suffer an estrangement with their immediate family. That doesn't mean that it's permanent, but, like, no one really, like, comes forward and say, "Guess what? I'm not talking, like, to, like, my son or daughter, and it's been, like, 3 months, 4." Like, people usually just report the best because we live in this digital community that's reporting the best. So it was a tremendous loss. I didn't know how frequent it was, and to just know that, um, that it's, unlike a death, you can feel like you can move on, but it's, I said there's not anything you can do if somebody doesn't want to be in a relationship with you or your family.
Mhm.
And, it was like mourning for like 18 months.
If you're listening today and you're thinking, I really need more support, I do offer what's called a heart to heart consultation. It's a 30-minute consultation. It's not a coaching call, but it's designed for moms who are ready to explore coaching, whether it be one on one or group coaching. So if that is you and you're interested, you can check out the link below. We'll see you soon. Yeah, absolutely. And that's that ambiguous grief, right? There's no closure, there's no meal train, there's no people don't most of them don't know it's happening to most of us because we don't always share. And then when they do know, they don't know how to respond. So the mom and the family overall. And actually, that statistic is more of like 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 families estranged from a child. So, as far as when you reached out, let's fast forward here. So, you said that 592 days, but who's counting, right? After estrangement, you sent a text, which good for you. And your son responded. So it was a brief contact, but it was meaningful. And it also for you, like it's that sign of that even in the silence, there's still a connection. You weren't blocked, right? It's always a mom's biggest question for at first. Are they going to block me? So what did that feel like when you did hear back from him? Even just the glimpse.
It felt wonderful. I had sent a couple texts that were just like, "Happy birthday, Merry Christmas," like those type of things, and not getting the response back, and so it was just so wonderful to get a response and know that he's not dead when you have, like, no information and there's no contact with your whole family, including, like, cousins, aunt, uncles, grandparents, like, like, nobody knew what was happening, that it just was so great to know, like, to have something that's more than just like, okay, having a reaction to you in a positive way was huge.
Amen. Yes, for sure. So, you have had posed question, in regards to growth and healing and preparation for the future, which is what I like to call the path to authentic connection. That's the path that moms are on. It looks different for everybody, but it's one of those things where you have to be prepared for if he were to knock on the door or he were to actually pick up the phone and call and saying, I want to come home. I want to whether he says, "I wanna have a conversation," or he doesn't, either way, when there's a major connection like that, would you feel that you're ready for that today?
I would welcome the opportunity because I love my son. I would like to have a restored relationship with him, but I also am scared because I know he's not the person that he's not the same person. Time has passed, and he's made different, life choices, and I struggle with not knowing if there would be like some sort of some shared values that there will be something to mend relationship.
Those threads of connection, which I'm sure you would still be able to find. So, my question to you is, are you prepared for a new relationship? Because it's not gonna look like the one you had before, and it never is with anyone, regardless of how much our kids have changed for the good, bad, the ugly, like all the things. And what we as moms are going through right now. Are we healing? Are we digging ourselves into a pit even more, like I did? Right? Like we have to be mindful of these things because we want to be the best version of us when they do come back. So it can be truly an authentic connection. It may not be perfect. It may not look like how we thought it was going to look like. In fact, many times it can be better than what we envisioned, but I can promise you it will be different. And that's okay. It's okay because we're dealing with adult children and they're adults now, right? He's 22. So, it's been some time and things have shifted. Regardless of choices, all of our kids shift. And so do we. But we just have to make sure and remember that we're responsible for our own shifts and that make sure that we are aligned with health and faith and all the things. It's like that you can be solid and know your truths. And that way, when you do come back together, that's when we navigate those new conversations. But for right now, that growth and healing and preparation process is so huge. So to end this, I have a question for you. If you could tell him something, what would it be? If you could say one thing to him in general, what would it be?
We love him, we support him. Our feelings and support have never changed, and we want the relationship, restored. And we're here. Our door, has always been open and continues to be open. He's the one that asked for space, and we've just continued to wait for when he wants to walk through the door.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. You know, you've been honest and vulnerable, and I know it evokes a lot of emotion. And any moms hearing this, there's no judgment there. Like we know the emotions can go up and down, but it takes a lot of courage to do something like this. So I applaud you for that. You believe in his future, or you wouldn't have set that path for him and agreed to do certain things for him. You laid out some clear boundaries, like it was all done in love and hope. And, that's great. But now you're walking through all this confusion and heartbreak. And I think he is too. Sometimes we forget that our kids also, while even though sometimes they're the ones that say, I need some space, it doesn't mean they're not struggling. It doesn't mean that they don't miss you. It doesn't mean that they don't want you back. They're trying to navigate and they don't have the emotional maturity as you do, like as grown adults. So it can be very complicated in that sense. But your story, I believe, is a light for moms who, living in the ache of broken promises. Like we think it's going to look one way and it ends up being something completely different. But I just want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I enjoyed the opportunity and sharing my story.
All right. Well, if this conversation evokes something in you and you're interested in sharing your story, you can reach out to us at team@sally-harris.com for more information. And until then, I will see you next time. Take care.